I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. You know, government comes into our lives in many, many ways, but today I want you to picture yourself in an airplane, a small airplane, not one of those great giant airplanes, but a small airplane flying over Hillsborough County, or flying over Florida for that matter. If you look down, you're going to be absolutely amazed at how much water there is all around us. We drive down a street we don't see because there's a line of bushes, a pond over here, a small lake over here, a stream or river. It's all around us. And one of the programs we have here in Hillsborough County is called Adopt-A-Pond. And I have two guests here from Adopt-A-Pond that are going to share some ideas and tell you a little bit about what's going to happen. My first guest is John McGee, Chief Environmental Scientist, Stormwater Environmental Programs Coordinator, Public Works Department, Hillsborough County. Wow, that's a title, John.
It's a mouthful.
And Jennifer Aragon is here with him, works with him, Stormwater Environmental Education Programs Coordinator. And I want to thank you both for coming.
Oh, thanks for inviting us.
And Jennifer, just to let everybody know, you're coming out and speaking with the people in Sun City Center on North Lake, where I live. Really triggered the idea because somebody was so impressed with what you had to say.
Oh, I'm glad.
And I
Glad to
said,
hear
well,
that.
if they're impressed with what she has to say, maybe my audience will be. And now after talking with them for a few minutes off stage, I know they're going to be. And John, I'm excited to have you, that you were able to take time out of a very busy schedule to get here and share ideas with us.
Thank you. No problem. We're glad to be here.
When we finish our 30 minutes, what do you hope that our purpose will be here?
Well, I hope that people will understand how Hillsborough County offers a lot of programs can really be beneficial for lake, pond, and stream residents.
Yep, definitely. I agree with that. Definitely like getting our program services out there for the general public, because a lot of people aren't aware of what's available out there for them and how we can help.
I think probably one of the things that people look at when they move down here, and so many of us are transplants. I came down from Ohio, and before that Michigan, and before that actually Ontario. And to me, a lake was something that you couldn't see the other side of for the most part. And here, lakes like our North Lake is 54 acres, and up there would have been a pond, but we proudly call the lake here. But is there a difference between a pond and a lake?
This is a great question. We get that a lot. In Hillsborough County, we classify a pond as anything man-made, and then a lake is anything else. So if it was constructed by a developer or to take soil for building another neighborhood, then that would be a pond. Any other natural water body, regardless of size, is considered a lake. And that's based on the EPC wetland rule. We have the Environmental Protection Commission in Hillsborough County that regulates wetlands. And their rule states that basically any natural water body is considered a wetland.
So actually I live on North Pond, not North Lake.
The name is sometimes confusing.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. They call it a lake, and it's like, if you want to call it a lake, you can do that. But yeah, we just base our criteria of whether it's Adopt-A-Pond program or like John's program, the lake management one, on that distinction of man-made.
And that's a good thing, Jennifer. Let's differentiate between the Adopt-A-Pond and lake management. You want to, one of the two of you, kind of define the differences?
Absolutely. Well, Jennifer can speak to Adopt-A-Pond. That's her program. The lake management program helps residents manage lake issues. Both programs tackle the same kind of goals. The difference is in how we approach it. Because lakes require some regulation, there are various sizes, the types of issues are a little more complex, we have a different set of tools that we can bring to the table for residents. Where Adopt-A-Pond has a pretty prescribed program that still incorporates flexibility for the neighborhood, but allows the people to have a defined set of goals and basically a scope of work. So Jennifer, you can probably tell them a little bit more about the...
Yeah, the Adopt-A-Pond program, we work with neighborhood groups to basically guide them along the process so that they know how to properly manage their water body, not only to protect the environment, but also to make it beautiful, because that's a lot of times the main goal for the neighborhood is they want the water body to look nice, and that's why they've come to us for help and how to do that. So we work with the neighborhood very closely. So any questions the neighborhood has about what they should or shouldn't be doing for the pond, we help them out and guiding them through that process so that they're not, left alone to figure it out on their own. We're the experts that provide the guidance.
I noticed in Sun City Center, one day I sat down with Google Earth and I counted the number of bodies of water. I assume in Sun City Center they're all ponds. I don't know that there are any actual lakes there. Simmons Lake was a stock watering pond, so I don't know whether that originally might have been, or maybe a lot smaller and then dug out. But the fact is, there's probably 80 of them.
Yeah, at least in the county. I mean, there's probably several thousand throughout the county, and every time there's a new development being built, there's ponds being added for drainage for that neighborhood.
And we're talking about something from 100 feet across to yards, even miles.
Absolutely.
Because ours is 54 acres, about 2.5 miles around. That's a pretty good sized lake with there are 4 islands in it,
Right.
which kind of makes it nice.
That's one of the bigger stormwater ponds. We have some that are slightly bigger than that. By contrast, we also have some lakes that are, barely half an acre.
Now the lakes, though, the EPA gets in on that too, right? EPA not so much on ponds, but more so on lakes?
Not so much. It's the local agency, the Environmental Protection Commission, which is a Hillsborough County organization that is most directly involved. And on a man-made stormwater pond, they are usually exempted from the EPC rule. Not in all cases. There's a little bit of a gray area, but most of the time.
Yeah, so for maintenance, planting, they don't need to get a permit. Whereas for the lakes program, if you're doing maintenance within the lake, you need to get a permit from them before doing any of the maintenance.
So since ours is, we've got pictures of it being dug before there was any water in it, going back into the 50s. Is there a grandfather clause on how long a lake has to be there?
Not really. No, it's the criteria are kind of complex. It's really up to the scientist that evaluates it to look at the history of the area, to look at the plat drawings to see how it was registered, to look at what conditions are growing there now. So, like I said, there is some gray area where a man-made water body could be classified as a wetland and vice versa, but usually in the case of North Lake, I don't think it's going to be any issue. It's pretty much a stormwater pond for sure.
And our lake is representative, ladies and gentlemen, of so many of the lakes. And the only fact is I happen to know the lake a little better, maybe ask some questions along that way, but I'm sure it'll apply. Everything I ask will probably apply to your lake also, correct?
Absolutely.
Yep, definitely. We receive or get a lot of questions that are pretty similar from lake to lake. Some are from pond to pond. Some ponds may have one issue, but in general, we get a lot of the similar questions.
Now, I live on the lake, and I love to watch the water ruffle back and forth, and I've got a boat on the lake, and when I get my motor running again, I'll have that out touring around the lake, and for me, that's what I love to do with it. Now, some of my friends love the bass fish, and they're out there bass fishing, and it's a catch and release, so all of the fish in our lake have been named, so don't come and get any of them, they'd be missed. But some are worried that the lake is kind of green. But I go back on Google Earth and I notice that it's been green for a long time. If you go back into the archives and look at it. Is there a problem? And what do we do now with that problem? And if other people have this problem, how do they get started? Maybe we should start with that first. If there's a pond in your backyard or in your community and you want to find some help, how do they do that?
Yeah, to find help, if it's a pond, then they would just contact the Adopt a Pond program. The first step in getting involved is to apply. You might not know if it's something that's a lake or a pond. If you apply, we'll verify that and get back to you. Once it's accepted in the program, we work through the process.
Let me stop partway because as soon as somebody says apply, I'm thinking, what's the fee to apply? Is there money exchanging hands here?
Not at all.
Yeah, not at all.
Or are you guys going to come out like the cops and say, you guys are doing all this wrong, you're going to be in trouble?
No. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not.
All right.
We're
We
not.
can go on then.
Yeah, we're not regulatory. We want to
Okay.
help the
Okay.
neighborhoods. The programs, both the pond program and the lakes programs, are both free. So the application is very simple. All you need to do is just have at least 50% of the residents around the home sign the application saying that you want to participate, and that's the whole process in the application. It's free, submit it, and then we'll go
So
from there.
you have to have 50% of the people living around the lake. Now, if you have a couple in a house, do they both have to sign?
Nope,
Or is it just 50% of the home, a representative of 50% of the homes have to sign?
Yep, 50% of the homes.
Of the home.
Yep,
So
so just
somebody
one
in there that
person.
has an owner's interest in that home has to sign.
Yep.
And that's a, it's a reasonable requirement. We're not trying to be very strict with people. There's all different circumstances. You may have a pond that has 2 houses around it, so one house signs on. So we're not going to be counting all the numbers, and if you get 49, we're going to make you go get that 50th. It's just what we want to see is that you have
There's an
community
interest.
support. Yes.
Yep,
there's
that's
an interest.
Right.
Yep, that's the main goal.
Because you don't do it all, you rely on the residents to help, correct?
That's right.
All right, so I've got my application in, I went ahead and filled out everything, I have my 50% of my residents in, now where do we go from here?
We would have a meeting to discuss more about the Adopt a Pond program, to answer any questions that the neighborhood group has. And we're also going to establish a management plan. We're going to see what things could be causing problems for the pond and identify things that the neighborhood can do to help correct those problems. And we'll lay out a plan for moving forward. You need that plan to be able to have guidance on how to effectively manage the pond.
Now, what would make up part of that plan? What are the kinds of things that you would begin looking at? I assume somebody's going to take some water samples somewhere along the way?
Yeah, water samples aren't necessary. A lot of things that
okay.
we look at are just the conditions of the pond. If you have a lot of nuisance vegetation in there, things that can be causing pollution for the pond, for instance, trash, if there's a lot of pet waste left on the ground, anything that can wash from the yards or streets into the pond and cause problems, those are looked at ahead of time, and then a plan is created on preventing those from getting to the pond, because those can all pollute the water.
We have an easy-to-use survey that we do an evaluation on your pond, so you'll get that. It lists several items that we look at, things like the condition of the vegetation and the condition of wildlife habitat, the overall condition of the pond. Is there a lot of trash in the area? And we'll provide that with a score to the residents. So that's one of the things that Jennifer will go over at the meeting, how to read that, and then the idea is to improve that score. So we use that to build a very simple plan, just things that you can do around the neighborhood with our help and on your own to improve that score.
Yeah, the pond groups are in the program for 3 years. That's how long the application is active.
Okay.
So we want to see at the end of the 3 years that pond score, checklist score has improved over that time. And then that'll show us that the pond environment has improved.
We have alligators in our pond, and I assume that every body of water in the state of Florida has an alligator somewhere, or has had one at some point
Has
in
the
time.
potential, yes, has the potential to have one in there.
Some of our people remember a time when the alligators used to be almost extinct in Florida, actually swimming in our lake. But that doesn't happen anymore because I've lost 3 of my ducks that I have out there that are the decoys.
Right.
That we pull our water to water our grass from the lake, and 3 of them have already been attacked by alligators.
So they were very good decoys because apparently they looked real enough.
Yeah.
Our rule of thumb with alligators is that you just assume there's one in the water body. But at the same time, alligators aren't usually aggressive toward people if they haven't been fed. The key thing is not to molest them, let them do their own thing, use alligator-safe precautions when you're around the area. And we've had people in ponds, over 300 ponds across the county for 20 years, and we've never had an attack. So it's reasonably safe if you follow the precautions. Definitely don't want to downplay that. Don't just go jumping in on top of an alligator. And definitely watch out for small animals and children because those look a little more like something that an alligator
Hors
could
d'oeuvres.
eat. Exactly.
I actually have a sequence of pictures of an hour of an alligator scouting my duck. I mean, trying to sneak up on my duck that's tethered. And he finally bumps it, figures out it's not real, and swims away.
Right.
Yeah, with whenever we work in the ponds and around the ponds, we always work in a group too. So you have people keeping an eye out, and as a group, you know, most of the wildlife is going to be scared away from the area, so it ends up making it less dangerous.
Okay, Jennifer, what are the things that would be in the plan? What are some of the standard things that you would say for almost any lake, and not necessarily just ours, but any lake? What are some of the things you think might be in the plan that people would want to do, or you would provide, or how would it get done?
Yeah, every pond is different, so every plan is going to be a little bit different. Definitely with all of them, we are going to be increasing the amount of native vegetation, so plants that are from Florida. We're going to be adding those to the pond. The plants are great for filtering the water, getting any pollutants out of it, as well as providing areas for fish to be able to hide and for birds to be able to find food. So that's always one of the things that we include in our management plans. Another thing too is marking all the storm drains. We have a program where we provide the markers and adhesive and door hangers with a pollution prevention message on them, and each of our groups goes around and marks the drains and puts the door hangers to let everyone know that nothing should be going down the storm drains. No
And that
pollution.
would be the responsibility of the homeowners or the people that are involved with this at the lake, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Making
the
sure
group
that
would be
they're
doing
marked
that.
and that.
You can use volunteers. You know, if you have a group of people that's willing to organize but not willing to do the work or not able to do the work physically, we can connect you with Boy Scout troops, church groups, students looking for service hours. There's numerous ways to accomplish the goals.
That's great, because in our community there are a lot of older people, and some of them have been living on these lakes forever, and getting in and out of the water or even getting down to mark a storm drain can be a real challenge.
We'll even help you work with a management company. If you have a professional company that's taking care of the area, you manage the contract, we'll help you make sure that that's something that's going to be compatible with your management plan.
So what kind of other things are going to happen? We're going to mark the storm drains. Now what?
Again, it all varies based on each of the ponds. So at the time of the meeting, we would then establish what, if anything else, the group needs to do to improve their score on that checklist by the end. So
Could be more trash control. It could be, depends on, again, on your situation, could be keeping leaves out of the gutters, could be changing some of the landscaping practices in the area. There's a whole host of things that are really site specific that the community can decide we'd like to tackle, A, B, and C.
yeah, like leaving areas around the pond that aren't fertilized, leaving a buffer area around the pond that's not fertilized, because fertilizer is a big contributor of pollution for our water bodies.
That was the challenge I was seeing when I talked with the people at our lake. They came to me first and said, "This is what we like to do, Bill." I said, "Whoop. I spend all this money to keep my green grass." And I know, I'm sorry, I do know that some of it's going off into the water. There's no way around it, but I don't want a desert or a barren lawn either. So somehow we've got to get a balance between those two things. Now, I assume you work with some of the lawn cutting groups and things of that nature to keep them up on this?
We certainly do. We're active in all different areas, not just our homeowner programs, but also in working with industries. We're setting up a meeting for property managers coming up soon to help them understand how we can do these things better. One of the things I think it's important to understand is that it's like an account, like a balance. You have nutrients coming in and you have nutrients leaving. And so what we want to do is make sure that that balance is at a point that you're happy with in the pond or lake. So you've got grass, you want to keep the grass, that's a goal. So that doesn't mean that you don't have to fertilize. You can still fertilize. You might change some of the landscaping practices. You might reduce some of the fertilizer. You may find that just working in the pond itself to provide the right kind of habitat will bring you to that balance where now you're absorbing what's being put in, and so you don't have the negative impacts. And because that changes over time, we're talking about a living dynamic system,
Sure.
It has to be adaptive. So this year, maybe you find that putting in those plants is all you needed. And then 5 years from now, you find that, well, you're kind of overdoing that. So now where are my additional sources coming from? What do I need to do to take that next step? And we can continue to help you all the way through.
It was interesting when they came to me, because I'm thinking, wasn't it just a few years ago that I was going out with one of the people on the lake, and we had a program to spray cattails because we didn't want cattails to take over the lake.
Right.
Now we're going to go and put stuff in the lake.
Yeah, cattails are native to Florida, but they tend to be invasive, so they spread pretty quickly and don't allow other plants to be able to live in area. We want there to be a variety of plants, so the ones that we provide through the Adopt a Pond program are all native, and they're not going to be anything that's going to be spreading rapidly and taking over the pond. So it's about putting the right plants in there that will be nice flowering, provide a variety of vegetation, and act as a great filter. So it's not about, you definitely don't want to eliminate all the plants in there. It's putting the right ones in there so that it meets your vision of the pond.
And I think that's probably, and I said it to you in the green room before we began this, invasive plants in my lake, every time I saw some of these people showing me pictures of lake plants, I'd go to Google, look it up, and then start out with invasive plants.
Invasive depends on the region, for one. Things that are a problem in certain parts of the country are not in others. And a lot of the plants will spread, but what we want is a controlled spread. So we're not putting anything that's considered a Florida Class 1 invasive plant, not even a Class 2 invasive plant. And if you look up those designations, a Class 1 invasive is the kind of thing that's going to totally disrupt a natural system. A Class 2 is one that has potential to disrupt a natural system, but hasn't really shown, like hydrilla or melaleuca trees or Brazilian pepper. It's not that bad. Those would all be Class 1s. Class 2s would be things like Mexican petunias and some other common landscaping plants that we see a lot. Even some grasses, some lawn grasses can be Class 2s.
Mexican petunias are invasive?
Absolutely, yes.
To what?
To any natural area in Florida.
Really?
Yes.
Yep, in certain situations it spreads very rapidly.
I'll be son of a gun. I have 3 of those plants sitting in my front yard.
They're very
I
popular.
just love them.
And we could take you to places in the woods where no one's ever been, and there's huge fields of Mexican petunia.
Really?
Yep, and they crowd out the other plants that are trying to survive in there.
So invasive is simply that they spread quickly.
That's right.
You know, when you said invasive, or when I first heard it, I was thinking of the Brazilian pepper or things like that came from somewhere else and have become a real problem.
Right.
As they talk about invasive species coming in.
Those are invasive species.
But there are natural Florida plants that are invasive.
Absolutely. Cattails would be a prime example. Yeah. So we don't recommend using cattails for management. Some lakes want to keep some cattails, and if you have conditions that can keep them contained, that's perfectly fine. In the north part of the country, cattails are desirable because they have freeze so that they can't spread like they do here.
Right.
But here we focus on low-growing, flowering plants, very ornamental looking, and there's even submerged plants. So if you don't want to see a lot of things above the surface, we can plant underneath.
How do they get planted?
Volunteers.
Yeah.
I was afraid I was going to have to wade into that water with those gators.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of our pond groups want to play an active role, and so they want to actually get in there and do the work. Otherwise, they can work with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, different volunteer systems to have them help in doing that. But anyone, no matter if you're physically able to or not, can participate and be helpful, either handing plants to the people who are in the pond doing the work, bringing water out. There's all sorts of different jobs for everyone that they can do.
I think it's hard for people to picture what we're talking about sometimes if you haven't seen a healthy, balanced aquatic ecosystem. I like to remind people to think of like Cypress Gardens or Silver Springs. If you've been to any of these old Florida sort of places, they're very well landscaped. The ponds, the ditches, the grounds are all lushly landscaped. That's kind of what we're talking about. We're not talking about a weedy jungle with lots of crazy, scary things in it. We're talking about an organized landscape that you can customize to fit your neighborhood, but provides the benefits that the plants need to provide to that water body.
I find that absolutely fascinating, because my first thought was, you're just going to make a mess out of this lake, and I'm going to end up with weeds all over my motor. Because up north, a lot of the lakes, you can't go anywhere because the weeds just clog your engine up. But this controlled growth and keeping it in spots seems to make an awful lot of sense.
It requires management. Every water body does. Just like your lawn, if you leave your lawn alone in Florida, it's going to turn back into the jungle that was here before the lawn was. Same thing in the lake. So what we want to do is teach people how to do that adaptive management program. You could certainly put plants in your pond through Adopt a Pond or the lake management program, never tend them again, and come back and say, see, it's a weedy mess. But that's not because of the program, that's because it was not properly managed. And so we want to hit both sides of that, putting the plants in and the ongoing management.
And you're not going to just come in, give them a plan, give them a plant. How do they get the plants?
We provide them.
You provide the plants, so there's no charge for that either.
Not at all.
They get the plants.
Yeah, all the benefits we provide in our program are all at no cost to the homeowners.
And so you're not going to come in, give us a plan, give us plants, and walk away and never see you again. You're
Not
going
at
to
all.
No,
spend
we
3
work
years with
very-
us,
Yeah,
watching
very
it,
closely.
monitoring
Even after
it.
3 years, we're still, anytime anyone has a question about their pond, can either call our office or send an email to us, and we'd be happy to go and meet you at the pond to look at it and give advice, or send you an email response or talk to you on the phone. So yeah, we're definitely very readily available, and we encourage people to contact us.
And this should help with aquatic life,
Absolutely.
Yes.
fish, other things that are like.
If
We had
you
a
build
few
the source of
otters
the
there for a little
ecosystem.
while, but I don't think there's anything for them to eat, so
They'll
so they
move.
left.
Yeah, a lot of things will move in. It's a strange fact that they talk about in the Fish and Wildlife Commission that you can dig a hole in Florida and let it fill with water, and in 10 years you'll have fish and other plants growing in there. It's just the way Florida works. It's an amazing ecosystem.
Actually, it's the way it works all over.
Pretty much.
Even up there in Ohio, we had this pond. All of a sudden, there were bass in it. I have no idea how those bass got there. I suspect somebody probably snuck a couple bass in, and that was the end of it. They bred and they went on. But I want to know what people should do if they look out at their lake. What should be the danger signals that would make them want to call you?
Anything that doesn't look the way you've seen it before. Something turning green, plants growing where you haven't seen them before, a different species of animal in there. Anything like that, we'll come out and take a look.
Mm-hmm.
We'll tell you if it's not a problem. Or the worst thing is to wait. And then when it's totally overgrown, come out and say, I don't know what happened. Because then it's a whole lot more work to get it back in shape.
Yeah, it's a lot more costly too. So definitely the first sign of change, contact us.
There's so many more questions I have.
Well, you can send people to our website. We have a Hillsborough County Water Atlas. You can just Google that. It's wateratlas.org. And all the information is there. We have videos, pictures, anything you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I found that both of you are really easy to get to. You're busy, but you will return phone calls, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the important thing. I want to thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah,
and
thanks
I
for
hope
having
that a
us.
lot of people will look out their backyards as I did and not just see water, but see a living organism out there, something that's part of the ecosystem that makes us all stay alive on this planet. And I'm really, really happy that you're here and helping us and making things go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bill Hodges. This has been Spotlight on Government. You're unique, you're special, you're great. Tell yourself often, because you are, you know. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jennifer, for being with us. And I hope to see you again on one of these programs.
Thank you. Anytime.